The 6th-month sun was as golden as a bundle of shimmering silk, spreading across the land. After sunbathing for half an hour, its skin began to dry and crackle. A soft pop echoed from its mouth's skin, and the large cobra gently shook its head, covered with hideous bumps and lumps. The old skin gradually slipped down, sliding past its eyes. This was the most dangerous period of the snake's life. When shedding its skin, it would be very weak because the new skin was still thin, wet, and easily torn. It also had to fast before shedding to make its body thinner, making it easier to shed its skin. But the main danger came from its own kind, who could easily eat it while it was still weak. This snake had lived in the wilderness for a long time. Its body was 7 meters long, and it was classified as a king cobra in its world. While peeling off the first layer of skin, the king cobra was startled by a strange sound. Its vigilant nature rose. The king cobra raised its head. Its black tongue flicked out warily. There was a very soft noise in the opposite clump of trees. Without much thought, through the taste on its tongue, it immediately understood the situation. The king cobra spoke, as if understanding the situation it was facing. "Is that you?" Another very long snake, its body as big as a thigh, its skin golden and shiny with a head as big as a hand, gently crawled out of the clump of trees. The young snake raised its head high and then lowered it to respond. "Yes, Father. It's me." The king cobra asked bitterly. "How did you know I was here? Have you been here long?" The young snake shook its head and replied in a confident tone, "I arrived right after you, Father. I knew you would shed your skin today." The king cobra nodded and then curiously asked, "You are very talented. You have the qualities of a king cobra. You deserve to be my son. How did you know I would shed my skin today?" The young snake lowered its head and looked at its father, then replied, "Father, as far as I know, young snakes or pythons often grow quickly. They shed their skin every half-month or month. You are too big. Your strength is no longer as great as before. Mother said that it has been 2 months since the beginning of summer since you shed your skin. These past few days, I have found traces of your crawling with small, very dry scales falling off. There has been a mouse in the cave near your path for several days, but I haven't seen you eat it. I think you will fast and shed your skin within a day or 2. The king cobra was startled and replied, "And you have been following me these past few days?" The young snake replied coldly. The hissing sound through its teeth created phi scales. "Yes, Father." The king cobra looked at its son warily. "You will do that, won't you?" The young snake remained steadfast and replied firmly, like a sentence that had been declared and could not be changed. Yes, I will. The king cobra looked at its son and asked, "What did your mother say?" The young snake was silent for a moment. "Mother said I need to do it." "Father." The king cobra sighed nostalgically. "That's right. I used to do the same. All king cobras do that. Son, we snakes don't have emotions. Kill or be killed. That's all." The king cobra's old skin was peeled off little by little, gradually slipping towards its tail. It closed its eyes, flicked its tongue to measure the distance with its child and estimated its size. It was too late. The cunning young snake somehow guessed the exact day its father would shed its skin to appear. Something that had never happened before. It had searched, been wary, and even groped every corner of its kingdom. It did not want to repeat its father's mistake of the past. And yet, suddenly, the young snake spoke. "Can I ask you a few questions?" The king cobra nodded. "Go ahead." The young snake hesitated for a moment and then curiously asked, "How did you become a king cobra? And what is our family's background?" The king cobra glanced at the skin that was being shed and then bitterly said, I don't know if I have enough time to tell you everything." The young snake wondered. "Why?" The king cobra nodded and replied, "Because I need 45 minutes to change my skin, and another 30 minutes for the new skin to dry and harden. That is. But my story, to tell it all, will take twice as long." Then the king cobra thought to itself, "I have to find a way to prolong the time. It is still young and arrogant in its position of strength. Surely it would like to hear the secrets of the court and history of our family. Especially for a child who smells the throne before its eyes like it. To learn more experience. To deceive the world. Or just to satisfy curiosity. No more than an hour. Just over half an hour. It will know what a king cobra is. I will tell. Tell the truth and be long-winded." The young snake was no stranger to the cunning nature of its father, but still nodded and said, "It's okay. I have time. If you are tired, just tell the main part." The king cobra pondered for a few seconds and then recounted to his son the origin of the family when it was still a small snake. At that time, the king cobra's family lived in a poor village. The village gathered nearly 300 households. Life was poor. 9 out of 10 were ordinary people, who did not even know simple characters. Power and wealth in the village were all concentrated in the hands of a few landlords and wicked mandarins at the time. The people mostly worked as hired laborers to make ends meet. They also fell into that era of famine and turmoil. So the fate of the ants and the worms became even more desperate. People died on the streets from starvation and disease. The rich still had a piece of coffin to bury their bodies, while the poor did not have an inch of land to bury their bodies. So they wrapped them in makeshift mats and buried them. Or they left their rotting bodies on the road for kites and crows to eat their bones and drink their blood. Like many other villages, the village where the King Cobra's family lived also fell into a similar situation. No one knew when the village was built and who was the first to set foot and reclaim this land. But originally the village had the name Noyet Sun. It was because the terrain surrounding the village was a crescent-shaped mountain range. On the nights of the full moon, the moonlight in this village seemed to be bigger and brighter than other regions, and it clearly illuminated every branch and grass, making the village even more magical and poetic. But when encountering dark nights, when dark clouds came and were gloomy, the moonlight only shone faintly, making this land of the village even more eerie. Even those with strong spirits had to get goosebumps and be startled. The King Cobra's family at that time hid in a cave in Mr. Ba Sun's garden. It was true that the meeting with Mr. Ba Sun was also a coincidence. Mr. Ba Sun, when he was young, was an unruly person. In addition to farming, he had an inherent habit of often going into the boy cave to hunt suro, partly to earn extra food and clothing, partly because the blood of a hunter had been ingrained in his blood. Mr. Ba Sun's grandfather was a famous hunter in this region, and the profession passed down to Mr. Ba Sun had been several decades. That day, as usual, Mr. Ba Sun carried a bow and arrow, and a large machete on his back, and went to Noyet Sun Mountain to search deep into the forest. On the way to Boy Cave, Mr. Ba Sun heard a rattling sound. Seeing the strange thing because this was a deserted place. Following the sound, Mr. Ba Sun discovered a very large crab, yellow in color, never seen before. He picked up the crab and looked at it. It still made a rattling sound. A boy in his hunting group saw that he liked it so much, asked him to bring the crab back. He gave it to the boy and continued into Boy Cave. Right after the entrance of Boy Cave, there was a rock, quite similar to a throne. Mr. Ba Sun and a boy slowly entered the cave, and he was surprised when he had just entered the cave, suddenly encountering two snakes perched on the throne-shaped rock. One was red, with a big body and a crest on its head. One was green, smaller, lying curled up, resting its head on the back of the red one. Mr. Ba Sun was confused because he followed the philosophy of materialism and did not quite believe in such spiritual things. Mr. Ba Sun then prayed, "If you are a deity disguised, and do not allow me to continue, I will stop my work. But if you appear, recognizing the things I have done for the villagers. Then I hope you will allow me to continue." After praying, Mr. Ba's son and the boy continued their work, which meant going deep into the forest to hunt. Noticing that the pair of snakes were not there, curiosity arose. Mr. Ba's son decided to explore the strange cave that the forest people rumored to be inhabited by ghosts. Despite the boy accompanying him trying to stop him, taking out the bundle of rags that had been soaked in kerosene, he quickly lit a torch and slowly explored. This cave had previously been explored by a group, but only very superficially because no one dared to go deep. That day, no one knew what ghostly force made Mr. Ba's son decide to go all the way down to the bottom to investigate, because he was very suspicious of this cave. Not knowing how deep the cave was, he still felt smoke and wind blowing up from below, feeling like it was dozens of meters deep and surely there was a way out to the valley. So he would find that way to create a convenient path. No sooner said than done. Right after performing the rituals of worshipping the mountain god and local spirits with an incense stick, Mr. Ba's son tied the rope to the rock and directly swung the rope for about tens of meters, holding the torch to illuminate the cave. He mainly went to find where there was light, where there were gaps for the wind to blow in. Seeing the vast interior of the cave, he was stunned and estimated. Right at the entrance of the cave, it was about 3 flower mats wide. A little further down, the width increased to half an acre of land. While shining the torch to inspect, Mr. Ba's son was startled. The boy who came with him ran for his life, half dead. Approaching him, his face pale, announcing that someone had died, and claiming that he had just died. Mr. Ba's son was terrified and quickly approached the rock to investigate the situation. What caught his eye was a terrifying scene. On that smooth rock, there was a corpse lying dead there, the whole body covered with a layer of white mold, as big as a normal person. Only the stomach was pinched flat. Mr. Ba's son himself also worked as a grave digger in the village. In his life, he had dug up quite a lot of bones. But this corpse was truly strange. The boy accompanying him had a face with no blood left, his mouth stuttering. Mister, this corpse was lying in the stream just now." Mr. Ba's son was terrified because he also just realized that strange thing. The corpse was almost intact, so he did not dare to carry it out, fearing being accused of murder. So he told the boy to climb up to report to the village elders. He himself still could not understand why someone could get into this cave and die there. This also made him think. Not understanding what substance or mystery it was that a person who had died for a long time was still intact, with only a layer of white mold covering it and a flat stomach, showing the absence of food for a long time. Both of them fled in panic, letting the rain slap their faces. Just at the beginning of the stream, where they discovered the body of the man just now, the boy suddenly cried out in panic, "Mr. Ba's son! Someone fell into the stream. Mr. Ba's son!" Who was running for his life, suddenly stopped when he heard the boy's voice. He rushed out to the stream, following the bag and a person who was being swept away by the water. Regardless of the danger, he plunged into the fast-flowing water, reaching out his hands to swim after him quickly. At the fork of the stream, the water swirled violently. Mr. Ba's son did not see the victim anywhere. He was worried. Where did he go? Oh my God, someone drowned. He rushed to this side, swam to the other side, hoping to save the unfortunate man who was swept away by the water. Perhaps he could not swim. Perhaps he was hit when he fell into the stream and fainted. And then, Mr. Ba's son came up, wiped the water off his face, and turned back to where the boy was standing. The boy understood and shook his hand, meaning that he did not see the man either. Oh no! Mr. Ba's son ignored the rain and wind, diving under the stream, swimming far down to search for the body of the unlucky man. But he only found the bag of gold digging tools of the man. It was true that he had not found gold but had lost his life. Suddenly, the shadow of the man floated up in the stream, waving his hands and splashing water, begging for help. Right at the most swirling water, Mr. Ba's son was startled and was about to rush down to pick him up when suddenly a large snake, the size of a human's thigh, completely red, with a crest on its head, darted down from the tree, blocking the way. The snake looked at Mr. Ba's son, hissing, making him terrified and speechless, rooted to the spot, not even daring to breathe heavily. The boy who was with him saw that the snake was too big and fainted. The snake looked at Mr. Ba's son intently and then quickly slipped into the bushes. When he regained consciousness, the man under the stream had disappeared. Mr. Ba's son knew that he had encountered a water ghost, so he frantically carried the boy and ran for his life back to the village. The next morning, the two of them brought a pair of roosters to the cave. The two snakes were still wrapped around each other, watching his every move. Mr. Ba's son placed the two chickens there and murmured, "I am grateful to you for saving me from the water ghost yesterday. Today I have a pair of chickens to offer to you as a thank you."